So, um, let's talk about elves. um, to start with, there are various kinds of elves. Okay, Galadriel in the Lord of the Rings sat on her duff as Galadriel in Lothlorien. Why? She was doing that because she was one of the most powerful beings in Middle Earth, basically, and had dedicated a substantial portion of her power to protecting Lothlorien. This is the same reason that Elrond stayed in Rivendell. Like, their power was diminishing. We could get into that. But magic was fading from the world, basically, and, you know, it's hard to be an elf with no magic, apparently. Elrond is only half elf. I don't know if you know that or not. Galadriel, Elrond, and Gandalf wear the three elven rings. Those are the three rings that are next most powerful to Sauron. The rings are basically determined by power by how many of them there are and who made them. And Celebrimbor makes three. And he gives one to Galadriel, as I recall, or something like that. I don't remember how she comes to have that ring. I could look it up. It doesn't really matter. The Celebrimbor makes them. Sauron, he makes the One Ring, right? He also is the deceiver that teaches the elves how to make rings. That's what he does. So his evil taints all of the rings, including the ones that Celebrimbor makes. But Celebrimbor's good helps balance that out, making them incredibly powerful. Okay. Gandalf is a Maiar, which is like an angel. Like, think of it as there's God, then there's like the gods, then there's like the helpers of the gods. That's what Gandalf is. And the elves the elves come in various forms. So first off, there's highborn elves, and then there's I forget what they call the ones that were born in Middle Earth. They're different. The highborn elves are the ones that were born in Valinor, born in the Undying Lands, born in the light of the trees. Galadriel was born in the light of the trees. She saw the trees with her own eyes. I know that doesn't mean much to you, but that's because you haven't fucking read the Silmarillion. Okay? Those trees are the source of most good magic and shit that is in the world, basically. That the trees are a big fucking deal. And her being born in the presence of those trees and seeing those trees with her own eyes makes her a whole different tier of elf than those other elves. That's why the elves were diminishing, because they aren't supposed to be here. They have to go back to the west. Like, this land is for the men. And Sauron tainted it, and they needed to put good men here, basically. But because of the complex nature of the foundation of Middle Earth, there weren't any men here until way later. Okay? Men came up into the First Age, something like that. Middle of First Age, something. The dwarves were before the ages started. The elves were at the start of the First Age, basically, is when they came into being. The dwarves were made first by Aule, the god of forging and smithing, and he really wanted someone to teach, and that caused him to sin against his god, basically, by creating dwarves. But his creation, while not in the will of Ilúvatar, or God in the Tolkien universe, was not against it. And so those were included. Whereas Morgoth, who is also known as Melkor, who is known as Sauron's boss, he had other ideas. He created dragons and orcs and shit. I, I feel a kinship for this person. Like, seriously. That's why the difference there. And then the elves were never in Middle Earth. They actually no, I take that back. As I remember, they started out in Middle Earth, came across, got taken to Valinor. Then there were some born in the light of the trees, and then they went back. Like, this is the Silmarillion's a big book, and I'm a little baked and half remembering this, but that makes it way, way more fun. So the point is, for those elves that actually were born in Valinor in that time between when they went to Valinor and when they went back to fight Morgoth, uh, yeah, you are incredibly powerful because you were born in heaven, basically. So it is arguable. I said to someone earlier that Galadriel was the most powerful person, short of Sauron, really, in Middle Earth at that time. And they said, like, what about Gandalf? Well, I would equate Gandalf, Elrond, and Galadriel on roughly equal footing uh, in the movie. In reality, Galadriel is using all of her power to keep Lothlorien the way it is. She's so powerful that just by sitting there and doing nothing and, contemplating her navel, she can keep evil out of an area of Middle Earth that's like the size of a small city or state. Like, it's like Rhode Island. She's keeping Rhode Island free of orcs just by her sheer will. Elrond is doing a very similar thing, hiding Rivendell, but Gandalf is a Maiar, which says like an angel, right? And then he is wearing the ring that I think Círdan the shipwright gave him. Might be wrong. I know a lot about Tolkien, but I've forgotten more than I remember. Anyway, that ring grants him another level of power, much as it does Galadriel. There's a solid argument to be made that Gandalf is the more powerful because he is a higher being. But there's a solid argument to be made that Gandalf was sent here at a diminished strength to keep him from being Sauron. And Galadriel was already here and got her power of her own. Shit. She just is. This is why I seriously believe that when you see Galadriel doing all this shit and chopping some troll's head off and whatever and being a badass, that's because, like, if you want to write her as being this commander of this battalion or whatever, like, it was never really said what she did in the War for the Ring. Like, there was not that much written about this, and the parts that were written about it didn't really have shit to do with Galadriel. She was just alive then. And, like, if you look at it, like, she and Elrond are, like, I'd like to go read more about Galadriel at this time and make more videos about it. I think that's really what it is. And I think the reason that I am going, I don't think there was ever anything written about Galadriel in the Second Age, is because there wasn't anything written about Galadriel in the Second Age. And that's why they're, like, all pissy. Like, you get that this is a movie or TV show or whatever you want to call this, right? So you have to adapt things. I don't want to see the Silmarillion shot for shot made into a movie. That would be awful. Peter Jackson adapted The Lord of the Rings, and he did a beautiful job of it. He knew what to put and what not to put. He cut one of my favorite things ever, which is Tom Bombadil, and that was a good cut. It just was. Tom Bombadil does nothing but add confusion, and it's it's a bit of book. Those are long movies. I get it. The Hobbit, Jesus Christ, the Hobbit didn't know how to tell stories because they took the best storytellers in the world and went, I know you just spent 20 years doing this once, but do it again. And now instead of using this many books, use this many books. Go. Have fun. So I think a lot of the like or hate of this comes down to your view and appreciation of the entire Tolkien universe and your amount of understanding of what actually exists for them to base this age off of. If you knew that, you would be understanding why there's significant holes, because you can't just tell that. Like, it's like a little thing like this that just talks about the War of the Ring. Now, I imagine we're going to see that part. We're going to see all that shit. Okay? As far as a way to get there, they're doing this. And someone mentioned that they thought that the Valar had to call the elves back to Valinor. That's not true. So let me explain Valinor for you. At this point in time, if you sail west, you reach Valinor. If you are an elf, you are welcomed in. If you're not an elf, you die. Unless you're Maiar, Valar, whatever, or with them. Some other thing, right? Eventually, they get tired of this, the Valar, so they do something that causes it to where they're harder to get to. It like moves the continent someplace or something. I don't really get how that works. There's a lot of this that's magic. Anyway, after that point, the only way to get there is by leaving from the Grey Havens, where Círdan the shipwright is, and taking a very specific course that only the elves know. It has nothing to do with being called back or not called back. I don't know where you got that. Again, like if you know something that contradicts what I'm saying, cool. But I really like I have not found my copy of the Silmarillion. It's at my fucking mother's house because I loaned it to her 5 years ago to read, and I never got it back. Not that I'm bitter. But I don't know. Without that to look through references to Galadriel, I really don't think there was anything about her in the Second Age. And honestly, if there was anything, it probably had to do with her meeting Celebrimbor or something like that. Because I'm pretty sure Celebrimbor is the other person in Lothlorien in the movies. I don't remember. So for everybody else was like, I read the Lord of the Rings books or whatever before I watched the movies. I watched the movies to the point that I loved them and then went looking for more Tolkien. And I bought the Lord of the Rings books and I read most of them. I read the entire Fellowship of the Ring a couple of times. And then the other two, I skimmed mostly. The Hobbit, I read many times. And then the Silmarillion was the one that I really fell in love with because it was what I wanted to know. It was my question upon seeing this Middle Earth was, okay, so where the fuck is this? When is this? Where was it created? Details, context. This is going to be a thumbnail. Just hold it here. And go. It's just like, I don't know. I loved that book because it explained all the rest of this shit. The other books basically just add in details that aren't important to the story in reality. And you can tell they aren't important to the story because the thing that made most of y'all fall in love with Tolkien ain't the fucking books, it's the movies. It's what made me fall in love with it. I'd never even heard of Tolkien. I was a C.S. Lewis fan, so I had like heard of him because he knew C.S. Lewis. But other than that, I had no idea who Tolkien was. I saw the first Lord of the Rings movie in 1999 and was just like, I saw the second Lord of the Rings movie, The Two Towers, and just like, oh my god, that is like one of the greatest movies ever made. Theoden. Theoden in the entire series. I'm not going to talk about that though. So I don't really remember that much of Galadriel from the book even. Like it's not that big of a deal in the book. Like she is an interesting character and she is a character that definitely was alive at this time that we know from those movies that they could do something with. And that's why I'm glad they're doing it. And as far as anything about her character, I'm sitting here watching it from the point of view of hating all this woke bullshit. And that's not what this is. I don't know what this is. It looks like they're actually legitimately trying to tell good Tolkien. I'm shocked. Very shocked, but surprised and happy. And I'm gonna go watch more fucking Rings of Power. The Lord of the Rings of Power. As brought to you by Ray Ray and her aliens blaster. I hope someone has found my videos on this useful. This is how I see this as someone that probably knows more about Tolkien's First and Second Age than any person that you talk to for sure. I really like this show. And I'm hard to please. You know I'm hard to please. You've heard me talk, if you've listened to Matt's shows at all, Never Enough Ammo, he talks about movies all the time on there, and I was on there for a long time. And I've talked about many movies. Like, some things I have a bit of a nostalgia factor for. Like, the first Predator movie, if you wanted to, you could hate that movie. You could nitpick some of the special effects and shit, but it's perfect. And it's perfect because it is what it is. And this isn't that because the fucking effects are good, but like this is good enough that I will still watch this when the effects aren't good. That's what I want. Sorry. Like a crash in the other room. Oh, I can't wait to get the charging handle for this. I don't remember what we were talking about now. I got distracted by the crash. I'm very much so enjoying this Tolkien thing. I hope you are too. If you would like to understand more about this, I would look up. There are channels that do nothing but like dissect Tolkien's story basically and explain it. And some of those channels have stories about the First and Second Age that they've done videos on. And look up the War of the Ring, anything on Numenor, and what else? The Forging of the Rings of Power. Like these are the things. This is the story they're doing, and they're doing it by the looks of it, pretty much as I would do it. They're having Sauron show up in a weird way in a comet or some shit, but like I don't know how else they would really do that. Tolkien, I don't believe ever truly specified how the Deceiver showed up. It was kind of like the Wizards, where I think he had him like appear on a boat or some shit. Like, you know, uh, the Wizards may or may not appear in a boat. I think we all know that whatever that is that crashed in the comet, it is a wizard. What I'm telling you is that it's Sauron, and he's going to pretend to be a Gandalf-like character that is here to represent, the gods, quote unquote. I'm here to teach you how to make rings. Don't you want to be like the dwarves with their big golden ears? That made me laugh. I'll see you guys later. I don't know if I'm going to keep up with the shades. They're very reflective of the screen, though. Gives my head tilt. Are you glad my camera's on? Yeah. I should just do this all the time. You'll get like seasick. I know I will. See you guys later.